it's Katrina. Number 13. Metal under the moon. Something very peculiar has recently been discovered on the moon, and it has scientists absolutely baffled. Astronomers at Baylor University uncovered a large mass of something that appears to be metal hiding underneath the largest crater on the lunar surface, called the Aitken Basin. Some scientists say it could be a relic from an asteroid impact millions of years ago, but it could also be something a lot more mysterious. The unexpected mass is about 5 times larger than Hawaii's Big Island, and it's buried a significant distance underground. It didn't originate on the moon, meaning it must have been planted there in the distant past. In fact, it was placed there so long ago that the lunar surface shifted and the giant chunk of metal was buried by moon soil. So far, scientists don't have any solid answers on what the mysterious object could be. Computer simulations of asteroid impacts show that under extreme conditions, the iron-nickel core of an asteroid could have embedded itself in the moon. However, it could also be a dense concentration of oxide material that formed back when the moon was covered in a magma ocean. The Aitken Basin is the largest and deepest crater on any celestial body in our solar system, which is something to keep in mind. It has a diameter of 1,600 miles and is well over 20,000 feet deep. Scientists have no idea what created the crater in the first place. All they know is that there is no larger crater on any of the planets in our solar system or on any of the other moons. It's a huge mystery, made even more confusing by the fact that underneath the crater is a solid chunk of metal. What are your theories? Let me know in the comments. Number 12. The underground biosphere. You may be surprised to learn that scientists have long proposed that at least a quarter of all living beings on our planet live beneath our feet. Bugs, bacteria, tiny organisms, all of them living in the dirt that we walk on. These tiny and seemingly unimportant beings represent a huge amount of life on the planet. But a new discovery has made the mystery of the underground biosphere much more interesting. The Deep Carbon Observatory now estimates that 70% of all bacteria and single-celled microorganisms live underneath the surface in their own special biosphere. Not just a few inches, though. Scientists believe there is a whole world of microscopic creatures living 5 miles beneath the ground we walk on. Maybe even deeper. It seems impossible, but scientists say it isn't. Even with temperatures of over 251 degrees Fahrenheit, intense gravitational pressure, and zero sunlight, the biosphere still exists. The most shocking part about this discovery is that the number of life forms likely outnumber the living creatures on the surface by a landslide. We only know about them now because of scientists experimenting with boreholes and powerful microscopes. For example, Karen Lloyd from the University of Tennessee recently revealed an organism found roughly 1 mile below the surface that hadn't seen daylight in millions of years. The microscopic monster doesn't require energy from the sun and instead feeds on methane. Some of these creatures even live for thousands of years in stasis, somehow surviving with less energy than we thought was possible for supporting life. Of course, this opens a lot of doors for the possibility of life on other planets, but we would have to dig beneath the surface, which makes it kind of difficult. Do you think there are insects on other planets in our solar system? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Number 11. Mystery Tomb. A very exciting discovery was made deep in the cold wasteland of Russia's Siberia. An ancient burial mound was found containing over 50 bodies and heaps of bronze tools and artifacts. This may sound like any other ordinary discovery of a tomb, but it's far from it. The tomb belonged to an unidentified culture. Scientists have no idea who in the world created the tomb 2,000 years ago. Excavators made the discovery in 2021 when they bulldozed the hill in the city of Krasnoyarsk as part of an expansion project for the local cemetery. The bulldozer accidentally unearthed the tomb, and immediately after, all the work on the project was halted. Archaeologist Dmitry Vinogradov then brought his team of scientists to excavate the site. Although the bulldozer peeled back the top of the mound, damaging a massive portion of the tomb, there was still a lot to investigate. The tomb had timber walls and a carpet made from birch bark. It was built specifically to hold 50 people, and contained a wealth of treasure. Archaeologists found everyday objects the ancient people would have wanted to take with them to the afterlife, including mirrors, needles, drinking vessels, symbolic bronze daggers, and their jewelry too, of course. It was likely a family burial site spanning several generations of hunters and gatherers, but they don't seem to have belonged to any group we already know about. They weren't part of the Turgai culture, and they didn't belong to the Ticinian culture either. The burial does seem to have Scythian characteristics, but these people were from their very own culture, one that archaeologists don't even have a name for yet. Number 10. Angel hair. There is a mysterious substance that people have seen falling from the sky around the world for years. It's called angel hair, and it's typically associated with sightings of UFOs. Although the truth of the substance remains a huge mystery, there is a case from 1959 that you might be interested in hearing about. In the city of Évora, Portugal, a sample of angel hair was supposedly discovered and investigated in a laboratory. Two strange objects were seen flying over the city at about 12 in the afternoon on November 2, 1959. Once the mysterious objects vanished from the sky, tiny white filaments were found all across the city, like hair shed from an angel's wings. Professor Joaquim Guedes Gomeral from the Industrial School of Évora witnessed the unbelievable occurrence and wrote everything down in his journal. Because this was such a huge sighting, it's generally considered a real event that happened. A lot of people saw the UFOs and the strange white hairs falling from the sky. A man named Professor Amaral gathered some of the hairs and put them under a microscope. He found that they were tiny microscopic creatures with tentacles preserved inside of a gelatinous goo. They looked a lot like sea anemones, only so tiny they couldn't be seen without magnification. But just like all the other sightings of angel hair, the substance quickly vanished. It appears to have been some kind of discharge from the UFOs. But because it always disappears, there is no way to confirm that any of it even happened. What do you think? Have you heard about these white filaments before? Let me know in the comments. And now for number 9. But first, I want to give a big shout out to Berenice Cernot and Jay Hilliard1. Thanks so much for watching and supporting Origins Explained. We wouldn't be here without you. If you are new here, be sure to subscribe for more videos about amazing discoveries. Number 9. Lost World. There was once an explorer by the name of Alfred Isaac Middleton, and he was a British zoological expert with a fascination for all things botanical and archaeological. In the 19th century, Alfred set out on several expeditions looking for lost worlds and forgotten civilizations. He traveled through the Amazon rainforest and visited Southeast Asia. He also trekked through hot and inhospitable parts of Africa. During his travels, he supposedly came across a lost city that has never again been found. The lost city of Dalitu is said to be hidden somewhere in the jungles of Sumatra. Legends say this city was one of the most advanced places on the planet, with towering buildings, complex city planning, a progressive social structure, and weirdly sophisticated technology. They had buildings that looked like flying saucers, and they seemed to know an awful lot about the stars. And yet, they were also very tribal and primitive in nature, lacking modern clothing or even modern amenities. Some accounts even say they were mutants and looked like strange hybrids of humans and monkeys. Nobody knows what became of the Lost Kingdom. That is, if it ever even existed in the first place. Based on the descriptions of Dalitu, some researchers believe it was a city of failed genetic experiments carried out by visitors from outer space. But unfortunately, this is all speculation until the actual city is discovered once again. Number 8. The Turgai geoglyphs. In northern Kazakhstan, there is a collection of mysterious earthworks that date back 8,000 years. They are called the Turgai geoglyphs, and they are over 6,000 years older than the much more famous Nazca lines in Peru. The discovery came in 2007 when Dimitri Day uncovered strange shapes carved into the earth on Google Maps. Dimitri was a huge archaeology enthusiast, so he launched an expedition of his own to see what was hiding in the northern steppes. His would be the first, but there would be at least 80 other expeditions as scientists desperately scrambled to figure out the mystery. There have been 127 giant structures found in the region. Some of them are shaped like huge squares, some are circles, and others oddly resemble swastikas. Keep in mind, these swastika patterns have nothing to do with the Nazis who came long after the geoglyphs were made. It used to be a peaceful symbol, and it was used in many different religions and cults. One of the most impressive patterns was dubbed Turgai Square by researchers. It consists of 101 earthen mounds and covers an area of 11 football fields, about 1,000 meters. It's just a huge square that seems to serve absolutely no purpose. But of course, all these geoglyphs must have been created for a reason. They are so old that they were likely built by primitive hunters and gatherers. They appear to be observatories or perhaps ancient calendars used in the Neolithic period. Some experts have even guessed they could have been used as places of cultic worship. It's all a huge mystery, and nobody seems any closer to solving it today than they were back in 2007. Number 7. The first dinosaur. Scientists have never been able to identify the missing link between monkeys and humans. And similarly, they've never been able to find the original dinosaur either. It's a massive mystery in the history of our planet, but scientists do have some clues. The oldest recorded dinosaur ever discovered is the Nyasasaurus parringtoni. It predates every other dinosaur by about 10 million years. And although it likely wasn't the first dinosaur to evolve, it very well could have been a relative of the earliest dinosaur. It was first found by paleontologist Alan J. Charing in the 1950s. But it wasn't until 2013 when the dinosaur was formally described using modern techniques. It lived in the Middle Triassic era, which was around 243 million years ago. That's approximately 12 million years older than the next oldest dinosaurs, which were found in Brazil. The Nyasasaurus was uncovered in Tanzania, Africa, in the Ruhuhu Basin near Lake Nyasa. And while the Nyasasaurus was an amazing discovery, it doesn't quite answer the question: where did dinosaurs come from? Scientists believe they evolved in the same area that humans evolved. The Nyasasaurus likely originated in the southern part of Pangaea, the supercontinent that once contained India, Australia, Antarctica, Africa, Madagascar, and South America, specifically in the region of Tanzania. Scientists are fairly certain that humans and dinosaurs both evolved in Africa, though unfortunately the exact details are still unknown. Number 6. Aliens in the sewer. Strange creatures are supposedly lurking in our sewers. Sanitation workers in Raleigh, North Carolina used a remote-controlled camera to look down a sewer tunnel because something was clogging it, and they needed to see what it was. But instead of a large chunk of debris, they found a horrifying creature. There was a fleshy blob stuck to the walls of the tunnel, unlike anything the workers had ever seen before. Additional exploration revealed even more growths stuck to the sewage tunnels, looking like hairy tumors. After making the shocking discovery, there were several weeks of confusion among the city workers. But finally, a marine biologist came forward to identify the creepy alien creatures as tubifex worms. Turns out that thousands of these worms had bonded together to create huge, sloppy blobs of life. Biologists say it's a phenomenon that happens when worms can't reach soil. They clump together to create a throbbing organism, like something you might expect to find stuck to the side of a spaceship. Number 5. Turkey's abandoned town. The creepy town of Kayaköy in Turkey is one of the most mysterious abandoned villages in the country. The place has been deserted since 1923 and is rarely even visited by curious tourists. There are hundreds of stone houses here that are slowly being eroded by the hot, beating sun. But 600 years ago, the city was flourishing. It was founded around the 14th century and grew to hold a population of about 10,000 people. There was a mix of many different kinds of religions, all living in harmony. There were Muslims from Anatolia and Orthodox Christians from Greece. This was a pretty big deal in the early 1900s, when these two religions weren't exactly getting along, never mind living in such close proximity to one another. Then came the Greco-Turkish War of 1919. The only way to settle the war was for Greece and Turkey to each claim one major religion and thereby ship those of the opposing religion to the other country. Muslims were shipped from Greece to Turkey, and Christians packed up their bags and went to Greece. The result left Kayakoi nearly abandoned overnight. A total of 6,000 people left their homes and churches and sought out a new life in Greece. After a majority of Kayakoi's residents moved away, the rest of the village's inhabitants packed up and left too. They abandoned their small stone houses perched on the side of the hill and never looked back. The place is now a ghost town, shattered by the earthquake of 1957 that left the houses in ruins. And some even say its lost streets are haunted. Number 4. St. Patrick's Bell. St. Patrick is the most revered saint in all of Ireland, but he was born in Britain. Not much of his life has ever been confirmed, and most of what you've heard of him likely came from rumors and fairy tales that have been spread over the past 1,500 years. Scholars believe he lived in the 5th century AD. He was born to a deacon and was kidnapped by pirates as a teenager. We know he worked as a shepherd during his enslavement in Ireland, and then he found God before escaping back to Britain. St. Patrick received a vision shortly after his return to Britain telling him to convert the people of Ireland to Christianity. And so, that's exactly what he did. He became the most important missionary in Irish history. Almost a century after his death, 3 relics were removed from his tomb: an iron bell, a goblet, and a gospel. But I'll tell you about the bell. Legend has it that whenever St. Patrick created a new Christian community, he gave them a special bell that they could use during religious ceremonies. St. Patrick had his very own bell, which was buried with him and then removed 60 years after his death. It was given to the Mulholland family to keep safe, but then the last family member died in the 18th century. The bell then changed hands several times before being purchased by the Royal Irish Academy. It's still on display today in the Treasury Room at the National Museum of Ireland. The only real mystery is that nobody has ever been able to say for sure if St. Patrick really used the bell. Apparently, there were hundreds of these bells made in the 5th century, meaning it could have belonged to anyone. Number 3. The London Hammer. In 1936, at Red Creek outside London, Texas, Max Hann and his wife Emma found a strange piece of limestone that seemed to have wood sticking out of it. They brought the stone home with them and used it as a weird paperweight. Then, in 1946, their son, for some reason, broke open the stone, and what he found amazed him. Contained within the limestone was a man-made hammer. The head of the hammer is about 6 inches long, and it has a diameter of about 1 inch. It was probably intended for fine work. The hammerhead itself was tested and was shown to be made up of 96.6% iron, 2.6% chlorine, and 0.74% sulfur, indicating that it was the product of a blacksmith's forge. The hammerhead has not rusted at all since it was freed from the rock. It's the same as American tools manufactured in the same area in the late 1800s. The rock that it was in, Ordovician limestone, probably formed some 400 million years ago. So, how did a late 1800s American hammer end up in a chunk of Ordovician rock? People have proposed it as proof of time travel, but not exactly. Limestone is very soluble, and the area of Texas where it was found is subject to flash floods and occasional torrential downpours. The limestone had probably been caught in a wet event like this and had formed a solution, and some hapless carpenter dropped his hammer into the puddle. As the puddle dried, the limestone formed what's called a concretion, encasing the hammer as the rock re-solidified. It's a known geological process and not really a mystery at all. As far as science is concerned, known geological processes can easily explain how this came to be, even though you have to admit it is pretty rare. But people believe what they want to believe, and the hammer was purchased by creationist Carl Bow in 1983. He put it into his Creation Evidence Museum, where he claims it as outstanding proof of the biblical flood story. Visitors can bring home a replica of the hammer from the museum gift shop, which you have to admit would be a great conversation starter. Number 2. The Badlands Guardian. In southeastern Alberta, Canada, is a geological feature that when viewed from above looks like something very interesting. Known as the Badlands Guardian, it looks just like a human wearing an indigenous type of headdress. It is huge, even bigger than the faces on Mount Rushmore. Because of the remarkable detail, many people have proposed it might have been created by an ancient civilization or an indigenous culture. Additional man-made structures make it look like the figure is now wearing earphones, but that is a road and an oil well that was installed more recently. The thing is, no archaeological evidence has been found near the area. Geologists say that this hasn't been carved by human hands at all. Instead, the formation is a result of rainwater eroding the clay-rich soil of the region, creating numerous patterns across the landscape. The Badlands Guardian has been named one of the top discoveries made by Google Earth. What do you think? Ancient monument or geological? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Number 1. The Desert Atlantis. There are lots of legendary cities that have been lost to time, but recently one was found which has been affectionately called the Atlantis of the Sands. For a long time, the only mention of the city, called Iram of the Pillars, was in the Quran, where it was said to be full of vibrant and tall buildings that were home to the people of Ad. At the end of the story, which saw the people being punished by Allah, the city was buried beneath the sand, never to be seen again. That was until the mid-90s, when a team of researchers used data collected by NASA satellites, radar, and images from the Challenger shuttle and found the lost city of Ubar. They claim it is the same city as Iram of the Pillars. The images help them to identify ancient camel trade routes and a large octagonal fort. Descriptions of this city in the Quran are very similar to the remains that have been found here. So, is it the actual city? Or perhaps the city in the Quran was based upon the real-life Ubar? No one knows for sure, but it's a discovery that has helped learn a lot about the way that ancient civilizations in the region used to live. Thanks for watching! Which of these discoveries surprised you the most? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time. Bye!